This story is actually real, though, in the end, everything turned out to have a fairly logical explanation. I will get to that. It was about 2 years ago. I was about 21 at the time. That summer, a few friends and I would often go camping in the forests near our hometown. I have this old 1968 Chevy G10 van which has been super reliable over the years, and we had started a kind of tradition of taking it along straight into the woods with us on our trips. It was really nice to have transportation close by, and we didn't have to carry our tents and camping supplies very far. Besides, my Great Dane got scared easily and walking him through a dark forest was more trouble than it was worth. We would roast hot dogs, tell stories, and generally just goof around. This particular night was the same as most weekends, the girls, Virginia and Diana, roasting some hot dogs. I was getting the tents set up. I bought this stupid folding tent for my dog, and he was no help in putting it together. My best friend, Fred, was standing around talking and watching the food cook. Well, soon the hot dogs finished and man was I hungry. Right as we were about to eat, though, we heard this piercing howl. When it comes to supernatural stuff, let's just say over the years my friends and I have had more than our fair share. We often would stumble into these situations where things would just get really weird. So given our history on these trips, we all got a bit freaked out by this howl. Especially when we looked into the undergrowth nearby and saw a pair of eyes staring back. Diana suggested it was a wolf, but we checked it out anyway, against my wishes. Sure enough, we found the tracks of a wolf or large dog. The only problem? It was obvious that these tracks were made on 2 legs. Fred was the kind of guy who wanted to prove the supernatural with more zeal than I can believe, so he obviously suggested it was a werewolf. I didn't want to get into this situation, but the next thing I know we are trudging through the woods looking for clues to where the dog or whatever had gone. I still remember so well as the woods gave way to a foggy clearing, and through the mist, I could make out a black iron fence with those spear point tips that you might see around a garden. In this case, it was around a cemetery. No problem. Hanging around Fred, I have been in my share of cemeteries and am not afraid of them outright. Still, I have to admit it was pretty creepy. The gnarled branches of the dead trees stuck out of the fog like skeletal hands grasping from the mists of the river Styx. Okay, maybe I was a little freaked out at this point, but it was about to get a lot worse. Next thing I know, I was staring down into an open grave and Fred was reading the headstone aloud. Here lies Silas Osterholt, half man, half wolf. Well, let's just say I was already half gone to get back to my van when Fred grabbed my shoulders. This is our first real clue. We can't leave now. I let him know that I wasn't about to follow the tracks leading away from the tombstone, which matched the ones near our campsite, because if there was a werewolf zombie out there that had crawled out of this grave, I didn't want any part of it. I am not even sure they heard my protests. And as always we were off to solve this paranormal mystery. Fred had a way about him that just made you want to follow him, and against every instinct, I pumped my legs in their direction as they continued to trek after this beast. We found more tracks in some mud further in the woods and followed them to an old, run-down flour mill. The second we got to the doorway, another of those freaking howls started. I could feel it piercing to my bones, but they all decided the best course of action was to go in anyway. We are all smart people, especially Diana, but there we were walking into this grumbling flour mill chasing what was at best a large dog and at worst a werewolf from beyond the grave. It was clear this werewolf didn't have made. This place was covered in spider webs, dust, and would be best described as just generally grey. Soon enough, we were splitting up to explore the place. The ladies went with Fred, I and my dog went off in the opposite direction. I figured since I didn't get to eat my hot dogs I could grab a snack while they searched the place. I figured if there were a wolf in here, we would hear it by now. Besides, this place actually seemed pretty cool. I found an old mask hanging on the wall. It looked African in origin. I decided to grab it and head back to find my pals. As I pulled it off the wall, I heard a thump behind me, but when I turned around there was nothing there. This obviously freaked me out, so I put the mask back and started jogging back in the direction of my friends. Well, this part of the story I got from Virginia later. Apparently, Fred had discovered more wolf tracks in the dust leading straight into a wall. After doing a bit of searching, they found a switch that revealed a secret door, leading to a small room with a single table, a chair, and a map. The map was crude, showing the general layout of the forest. There were 3 X's drawn on the map, and one was labeled Mill. Just after finding it, Fred and the ladies came face to face with our wolf. It had less hair than you might expect, and its flesh was a rotten green color. It stood, as Fred had suggested, on 2 legs. They knocked down a stack of crates on the beast and booked it out of there. As I was coming back to tell them about the sweet mask and strange sounds, they ran straight into me and my pup. Hitting the floor, I saw the thing's shadow approaching our corner. Things got real very fast. Next thing I know, my legs are going like rockets and my dog is right beside me. The others must have run a different direction, but the beast decided I was the more appetizing one and gave chase. I grabbed my dog and hid under a crate over a spot of particularly rotten floor. I kicked it through just as the monster found us, and my dog and I tumbled down to the next level of the building. I was so frantic I had no idea what to do, and my dog was being cowardly as ever. Who could blame him? We ran up a set of nearby stairs, and my eyes fell to rest on a large water hose. The kind built into the walls of industrial mills like this one in case of fires. I turned that hose on the beast as it topped the stairs, knocking it straight back down them. I jumped onto a nearby ladder, dog over my shoulders, and climbed for my life. The thing was back up the stairs and I could see its red eyes glowing with what was certainly a sentient hatred. This thing wanted to kill me, and I wasn't going to wait around. As I reached the roof of the mill, I saw the thing start to climb the ladder. I did the only smart thing and hopped down to a lower section of the building that was directly over the water wheel. The wheel was not too big, and I could tell that if I could cross it I could get to a nearby window and hopefully ditch this creature which by now had reached the upper roof. The dog and I ran across the water wheel, which felt a lot like running on an unstable treadmill, and I grabbed him and jumped headfirst through that window. We ended up in some kind of storage room filled with bags of wool. I covered us in a pile of the stuff and hoped the thing didn't find me. Next thing I know, my friends walk in and mistake us for monsters as we start crawling out of the wool to greet them. Before I can get it out of my mouth to stop them, they took off running, again, and so I ran after to find them. They were hiding in freaking barrels that had these weird rubber tubes sticking out of the top like snorkels. I knew they were there because the tubing was shaking around with their movements. They are lucky it was me looking and not the wolf thing. Diana noted all the things that were suspicious here: secret room, the map, the wool, the barrels with rubber tubing, and obviously the werewolf/zombie/ghost thing. Fred said he was determined to get to the bottom of it and set off for the exit. We headed out some shipping doors in the back and found a set of railway tracks that lead from a nearby storage building to a dock on the river, with an empty cart rolling by us down to the water. This was most likely originally to haul out flour produced by the mill, but this mill had been out of service quite a while by the look of it. I went to check out where the tracks went, while my friends went to see where the tracks originated. I followed the cart and came upon an old, rusty shipping barge. Some king of the very large storage container on the barge opened to accept the cart. As I got close, I heard a sound behind me and through the fog saw as the monster threw a large barrel straight at my head. It missed by a couple feet and landed just behind me, so I jumped as it rolled under me. I landed on the barrel and ran on it for about 2 seconds as it rolled. Probably the most skillful balancing act I have ever pulled off. I grabbed a hook from a ship-to-shore loading crane and swung like freaking Tarzan, scooping my dog up. I must have looked like Indiana Jones or something, but I honestly don't normally have that kind of skill. Funny what you can do when adrenaline is pumping. That heroism ended fast as I slammed into a small shack on the shore. Running inside, I found a basement area down a ladder, so down I went, heavy dog on my back. I followed a tunnel I found and hoped it would lead to my friends. As all this was going on, they had been following the tracks in the other direction. I heard them talking above me as they searched, and I knew my tunnel was directly under them. I walked below their feet until I found a ladder, and popped up on them. I told them about what I found, the electric barge that opened to catch the carts. For whatever reason, they didn't believe me. I took them back through the tunnel and showed them in person. A cart approached, and a section of the barge opened just as before. The cart went in, and so did we. Inside was a room full of those strange barrels with the rubber tubing. Soon enough, we also saw the monster. He was outside this section of the ship, fishing one of those strange barrels out of the river. He carried it inside and placed it on the newly arrived cart. I was sure I could hear a sheep from inside the barrel. Fred decided that he wanted to capture the beast, and in order to catch him, we would need to get inside the next barrel as it came down the river. They were planning to use the crane hook, the one from my heroic escape earlier, which they also didn't believe, to catch the beast when I popped out of the barrel, but obviously, such a stupid plan didn't work out. Instead, I just pushed my barrel back into the river after the crane inevitably missed the mark, and hoped the thing didn't eat me. It started giving chase in a small raft that was on the barge. At this point, it was clear that this thing was as smart as a human. It was also clear that this river gave way to a waterfall very soon. My loyal but terrified pup jumped into the water and pulled me out just before the falls. The werewolf wasn't so lucky. His raft snagged on a rock just as he went over the falls and he began yelling, in English, for help. We pulled him up from the bank and found that he was just a man in a mask. In fact, he wasn't a werewolf, he was a thief and smuggler. He was using the old mill to move stolen livestock and used the costume to frighten off anyone who came along out here. They would float the stolen livestock and stolen goods from further up the river, and he would catch the barrels and ship them out to the black stock market or wherever you sell stolen livestock. Sure, it didn't turn out to be paranormal. I have to say, though, this was one of the more frightening camping trips I have taken.